The Moreness Show with hosts Syl and Beena is about to bring depth and value into your life.
Hello and welcome to the Moreness Show with Syl and Beena, and we are here again. And today we are going to do some celebration because this whole show is going to be about celebrating difference. This is something very interesting and important topic because at least I can say about myself that I never heard this before I met Syl, and then he elaborated. And before that, it was like, yes, we can tolerate difference, we can adjust with differences, but not celebrating difference. And this is what Syl is going to share today. Welcome to the show, Syl, and please continue it.
Celebrating Beena.
Thank you.
As Beena said, typically when it comes to difference, we hear people say, well, all right, I'm tolerant of difference. As opposed to, this is now an improvement and a positive, as opposed to being intolerant and, just not liking difference. Oh, I don't tolerate it. Then you get a little step up from that, which is, okay, I acknowledge your difference, right? Then if you get to really enlightened people, they'll say, well, I accept difference.
Yes.
All right, it's not bad. I was saying it's bad. But if we look at the Moreness, right? I mean, accept difference. I shouldn't pull a face. I mean, that's good, right? To accept difference and to acknowledge and accept difference and be okay with difference, right? This is good. But there's no Moreness there. When you start to celebrate difference, that's when you really start, wow, this is awesome. Beena and I, we may talk about the same things. And we do talk about the same things. And we hold the same values. We have similar goals. Yet, the differences between Beena and I, huge, right, Beena?
Huge, yes.
And those differences is what makes our association, our partnership, our magical, wonderful friendship so fantastic. Right?
Yes.
It's the differences where the magic lies.
Exactly.
Because I often ask people, especially in the context of self-love, how would you react and how would you be with a clone of yourself? Right? People are like, they really think about it. And I've met very few people who are excited at the idea, because when you really think about it, if you were with your clone and they are truly the same as you, not like twins, because twins have quite distinct differences, even though they can be even identical twins. I'm talking about identical twins. They have very distinct differences. Even when they make an effort to be the same, they are still very different. So I used to have a restaurant once upon a time, long time ago, and my butchers were identical twins. And they answered to either name, and they refused to say specifically which one it was. And they loved this idea. So, and they were naughty. They were very naughty, the two of them. I mean, they weren't young guys anymore. They were probably in their 50s or 60s already. But they said not even their wives could tell. So that tells you something right there. you take the implications of that. So there's a famous story by Roald Dahl called Switch Pitch. Anyway, so I'm sure they they could have been examples for that story. Anyway, my point is that when you're exactly the same, it kind of gets a bit boring, because if you say something, you know how you would respond inside your own head, and it's exactly how the other will respond, right? So it's like, I mean, unless you're a rampant narcissist, it's not so much fun. But my point is, when we get back to this, right, Beena, when we celebrate difference, that means the difference is a joy to us. It's fun. It's exciting. There's a Moreness to it. And when you shift your perspective to start noticing that, looking for it, recognizing it, extracting it, that's when all the joy and fun and Moreness comes. Right, Beena?
Yes, I just want to pull you back to what you were saying before, that when people might have a chance to have someone completely identical to them, like in their behavior and responses, of everything, and of course their thought process. And you said, okay, life could be very boring. I don't think so. Life might be very overwhelming also,
That
because
could be. That could be.
yes, because
Wow.
because uh, because we need a different response. Like, okay, if I am getting like really overwhelmed or by really hyper or frustrated, and if I have someone who can adjust with that, then of course the business can go on, like the business of life. I mean, and it can go on. But if we both are exactly hitting each other, we are going to really make a big blast, and
Yes. Yes.
things will
Yes.
fall apart.
Right. So the
So
boring wasn't my sentiment necessarily. It was where I said when I asked people what they would, how they would react to
hmm,
their clone.
hmm,
That's
uh-huh,
where they typically, well, I'd be a bit boring. Or like you said,
yes,
they didn't say, well, I'd be overwhelmed, but they were a little bit nervous of the idea. Right. So they
exactly.
never they didn't say specifically and exactly. We've had a few on, right? If you remember,
Yes,
and
yes.
they were like, oh, I'm not so sure about this, because of
Mhm.
course the great advantage if you were to have a clone, right, is that over time you likely will start to diverge, but initially you'll be the same, right? But over time, unless you are in the same spot at the same time, but even then, you are going to still diverge internally. Because for me, I know I love to perspective shift to multiple perspectives, right? And again, that's our picture is very useful for this. Okay, it's also celebrating, but different spots,
Yes,
it's all in there. But when you shift a perspective, sometimes you grab onto one and it's just random. There's 100 perspectives and I just grab whichever one comes first. If you look at your computer and you ask your computer to load things randomly, right? And you have two identical computers, they're not going to load the same things, right? And you say,
yes.
well, pick one at random. They're going to pick something different. And likewise, you and your clone are going to do that. So over time, there's going to be divergence. Even if you try and bring it back, there's still going to be divergence. But here, to me, is the great advantage of of the clone. All right, now we're going to the opposite of celebrate difference, because now we're celebrating sameness. But it's contextually appropriate, so we'll continue with it. For
Hmm.
me, the major part would be the advantage of being able to observe yourself externally. This is a huge difference. Looking at yourself in the mirror is not quite the same thing as, well, for instance, just seeing yourself on video, right? Boom, recorded. Yeah, this is very different. And when I hear my voice and when I hear my recorded voice, also two completely different experiences. Now, imagine when you are observing yourself externally. You're going to notice all your nonsense, all your quirks, all your things that you are oblivious to. So all your habits. When you do it, you don't notice it. I mean, I like, I'm aware that I clear my eyes. I don't know, my eyes need to be. I like fresh eyes. Just a personal habit. But it's not a negative necessarily. But there may be other things that I do that I don't notice. I'm sure you'll notice it in your clone, right, Beena?
Yes, yes,
Because you'll
definitely.
be hyper observant and you'll see everything.
Okay, I just want to add something here.
Yeah.
Yes, on a personal level, that okay, yes, we are just elaborating about like having a clone of yourself,
Yeah.
and it could be overwhelming, it could be, of course, chaotic, and it could be, of course, very boring, very mundane, like very plain. If we go a bit broader, in a broader aspect, then we can say that, okay, what we do in art, what art actually is, it is actually celebrating difference. We use different
Yes.
colors,
Yes.
even in the monochrome paintings, or any visual art. Even there, you see and you celebrate the difference, different shades,
Exactly.
some difference there,
Exactly.
subtle differences there. And of course, in
Exactly.
abstract, you see that, okay, yes, a vast, completely stark differences in things. What we are doing it in art, just actually collaborating everything, different things there, different component, different shapes, different sizes, different colors, textures, and there we actually implement celebrating difference. This is the idea of art,
Oh
is
yeah.
this is the essence and soul of
Exactly.
art, celebrating
Exactly.
difference.
And I have a quote for you
Yes.
from Fine Noble. Fine Noble says, "The art of art lies in the."
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
The
It's
capital
all
A
about
art
celebrating
of art.
difference.
Exactly.
And if we go a bit more on a broader aspect, then we can say that, okay, basically human mind start learning on a very basic or almost on a primitive level, you can say. We learned by understanding the differences, by comparison, by seeing that, okay, something is different than the other, like day and night. Of course, like, okay, in our own state, being awake and sleep, being hungry and satisfied. And it's in see it goes on and on and on. This is how we understand things, because comparison, this is the basic very primitive criteria of understanding things, but this is how we learn. We should not stuck there. Of course, we need to go a bit further and of course start celebrating other things. But the basic understanding and awareness start in human mind, and of course in human evolution, was about understanding the differences by comparison, by
Exactly.
comparing two things.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. I mean, if we take just a painting, when you see classic paintings, many of them simply did still life paintings, a bowl of fruit, a flower arrangement, something like that, right? Very classic, right? Very, very classic. But now, what's the difference between that and a photograph? What makes one art and the other just a photograph? Difference. It is precisely art that is not quite capturing the thing exactly. That difference is what brings some kind of mood, some kind of resonance, some kind of implication, and some kind of intimation, maybe some kind of connectivity, anything that connects you to the ineffable. To me, this is what art is, real true art, right? Not people pretending to. No, I mean, really good art. It connects you to the ineffable. Same with poetry.
Yes.
Poetry
Yes.
being part of art, right? Same with music. When it connects you to the ineffable, even if you're singing about something banal, connection to the ineffable, that's when we get it, right? And it is precisely through difference that we get there. Because the sameness, we already know the sameness, right?
Yes.
And unless that sameness is the ineffable or magical, but see the magical, the moreness extra. That's why moreness is so beautiful. You never get tired. It's always more to it. By the way,
I have a question for you.
Another question right quickly. I just want to read another quote because it's very appropriate and it's just above the quote of the art of art lies in difference. And the quote reads, creativity is allowing yourself to do something without having a clue how.
Yes.
By Bella Noble. Now, isn't that celebrating difference?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
precisely you don't know. And it's the celebration of not knowing. Isn't moreness exactly not knowing? Not the usual, not the conventional, not same old, same old. It's exactly what moreness is, right? Except moreness isn't just difference. Moreness is difference with depth. Moreness is superlative difference with extra, with value, with bonus, right? Magic, awesome, right? So moreness is taking that to the end, extreme. But it is difference. It's different to what you normally have, right? We don't typically have moreness. We can get to a space of being. Beena and I live in such a reality and world where we constantly have moreness. But the moreness is never the same, right, Beena?
Yes, of course. That's why it is moreness. That is exactly
Exactly.
why it is moreness.
Exactly.
Okay,
And what is your
I have a
moreness question?
Yes, okay. I was keen to ask you because nowadays I am actually reading about singularity, the idea of singularity, and the misconception. I was reading some comments when people were actually reading some articles. They were making comments and all that, and they were saying that, okay, oh, if it is going to be everything is same, yes, and we know that, okay, some Buddhist and of course some Zen ideas also, some ancient also Asian. Scriptures also say talk about singularity, but even this singularity, the idea of the main concept, is not about actually being same. Singularity is the idea in itself, because some people have this misconception. So I was keen to ask
Right.
you about that, how, because this term precisely explain that, okay, we are not negating the difference. We're saying that, okay, differences are there, they are existing. And you're not saying that, oh, everything is same and all that. No, They are existing. The differences are there, but we are celebrating them. Okay, and how we are going to celebrate? Yes, how we are going to celebrate? This is what we are going to ask Syl after the short commercial break. See you guys there. Bye for now.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to the Moreness Show. Yes, Syl, I know that. Okay, we were cutting it off, but anyway. Okay, welcome back to the Moreness Show. And before the break, I asked Syl a very interesting question. At least for me, this is very interesting. So please, Syl, continue. How actually we can celebrate the difference, even with the idea of this singularity?
Okay, so let me comment on singularity. It's really intriguing to me that people confuse things or assume or think or believe singularity to be sameness. The very concept of singular means something is unique. If something is unique, by definition, it is different to everything else. Right?
Oh, yes. Yes.
So singularity means you are precisely one of a kind. What singularity means absolutely unique, singular, right? Singular, one, singular. So singular and unique means the same. Therefore, you are different then in singularity to everything else. Let's come at this. We'll talk about celebrating difference more in a moment. I just want to come at things. This is sparked a train in my mind as to why people are afraid of difference. Insecurity. Simple as that. If you look at almost all of our problems and you root them back, insecurity. So why is insecurity? If I'm insecure in myself and you're different, right? By implication, now your way of being is a better way than mine. And because of superiority paradigm and comparison and hierarchy, if you're better and I'm worse, now your difference makes me look bad. It pushes me down the hierarchy. And this is where insecurity comes from. People aren't confident about themselves. So anything that threatens their well-being, their comfort, is a negative, obviously, right? And they treat it as a negative because they're insecure. And they don't want to feel like I'm less, I'm useless, I'm hopeless, and all this kind of thinking, right? And therefore, anything that's different has the potential to make them feel that way. And therefore, no, it's no good. Plus, when you combine the mentality of opposites, which says, if something is not white, it must be black.
Yes.
It's completely flawed thinking. Or the reverse. Something's not black, it must be white. I've many times asked people this question. If something's not white, what color is it? Like, no, it's black. No, it can be any color. Right? Besides,
Yes.
black and white aren't colors.
Yes.
Technically, black and white aren't colors. White is all the colors put together, and black is the absence of colors. It's funny, I don't remember many things my father said, but he said this at some point to somebody. I was about 3 years old, and it stuck in my brain. I never forgot it. Anyway, so there's peculiar things we remember. But I liked it because it was
It's a profound idea.
discerning.
It's a profound understanding, yes.
Correct, exactly. And it showed some depth, right? There was a moreness to it, to understanding us. But now, to get back to this point, when something is not one thing, we assume it to be its opposite. Therefore, if you are different and you're also kind of cool and good and okay and happy, and I'm different to you, well, then that by implication makes me the opposite of you, which makes me bad. And this is the root of all racism, unfortunately.
This is a primitive
and
thinking
people
again.
insist that they are good, therefore those that are different must be bad because they're different, they're opposite. They see difference as opposite, not variation.
Yeah, because this is very primitive. When we actually didn't have much of variation. Okay, day and night. Okay, the concept of evening and afternoon was not existing, and dawn and all that. So it was just very primitive, very basic. That okay, day and night, and same like okay with the colors. Like okay, this is the color, and very basic, very primary, very primitive thinking. Unfortunately, some people in their basic understanding not growing up, refuse to growing up. Actually, they don't want to acknowledge.
And this is a very important point. We mustn't forget, no matter how sophisticated the world becomes, that we essentially still start off at zero.
Yes.
When it comes to our awareness, right? And therefore, we have the chance to be primitive. Because all that is in our world today, it's simply an option that you can sort of, a specialization you might call it, right? Just because your computer can run the latest operating system, it can also run the old one, right?
Oh yes.
So you could have a computer that's running an operating system from 30 years ago. Our brains are likewise the same, right? We have the capability to run old systems, and therefore we can be primitive, especially if your environment supports it, and especially if you're afraid of difference, which is also insecurity. If you're insecure, you don't like learning too much. Yeah.
Okay.
Because as soon as you learn, it exposes your insecurity, which means I'm insecure. I don't know. I'm uncertain. I have no confidence in myself. Basically, I don't know. Right? Which means if I start to learn, I now am basically proving that I don't know because I'm learning. It's a messed up psychology, yes, but nonetheless, it still is there. It happens inside people. They don't want to learn because they're afraid that once they learn, it's an acknowledgement that they didn't know in the first place. But they've been pretending to know, right? Insecurity always, they pretend they know, they pretend everything's okay. See?
Yes.
So they have to give up that pretense. And that's why you say, oh, I knew that, when obviously they didn't know that. Insecurity, right? Insecurity is a really terrible disease. It's really horrible. So just acknowledge you don't know and get over it, man, for heaven's sake. Everybody, people who are secure, they're the first ones to acknowledge they don't know. This is where you get security from, is acknowledging that you don't know. But it's just fear. Fear of ego, fear of status, looking bad, all of this nonsense. So you have to unhook from that and move on. So now we get to celebrating difference. How do you celebrate difference? By understanding that difference is learning.
Say it again.
To celebrate difference, we have to understand that difference is learning, and learning is good. If you learn something, it's different to what you knew before by definition, is it not?
Oh yes.
It's just like duh, right?
Yes,
so this is the magic of learning. It's difference. It is grabbing difference and making it your own. And right there is the magic sentence.
Hmm.
Right?
Yes.
Right there is the magic sentence. Difference is grabbing something, connecting to something, taking something, and making it your own. There's the issue. There's the big, big issue. Yes, those who don't like learning, they never make learning their own. And they just put it in their database. And that's not making it your own. That's just accumulating data. And it means nothing. It doesn't change you, which is why they're insecure. Right?
Hmm.
No matter how much stuff you have on your hard drive, you could download everything. And if you never install it, you never and use it, it means nothing. It's just you got a hard drive full of stuff. It means nothing. Your computer stays the same. Right? You have to install those updates and upgrades. Right? And that's making it your own. It's installing it.
This might be because of avoidance of responsibility. Once I'm aware of it, anything, then I cannot be unaware, and then I cannot say, okay, yes, I was not aware of it. I cannot ignore or avoid the responsibility. It's a big, huge thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Fear of learning and fear of differences, pretty much the same.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
And that's, that's why too, I said insecurity is fear of change, which is what is change? Difference again.
Of course. Yes.
But if you embrace change, like the old Chinese proverb, the only constant is change. Right?
Yes. Yes.
If you're embracing change, aren't you embracing difference?
Yes.
Now, what's the difference between embracing and celebrating?
Embracing and celebrating. Okay. Embracing is something.
Think of your age, Beena. Your next birthday when you turn 24 or whatever it is. Right? Are you going to embrace that or celebrate that?
Both.
Right, exactly. But see, but it makes a difference, though. I'm saying there is a difference between embracing and celebrating. You can embrace something, but not necessarily say, okay, I embrace my age. Okay, I'm 93 next month. Okay?
Yes.
But I can celebrate. Hey, I'm 93 now, and I've lasted 90 more years than I thought I would. Whatever.
Yes.
Right? You see what I mean? There's a difference. So celebrating is to connect with joy, to connect with the light, to connect with vigor, with energy, with enthusiasm. This is celebrating. Yes.
So what's the difference with embracing, other than the
Embracing
emotional intensity?
Okay, embracing is to take it on in a way that makes it your own. Yes, and it's positive, but it doesn't have the superlatives of joy and delight added. It's just okay. It's positive. It's like eating a meal that's very bland or slightly positive. I enjoyed that, but it's not a 5-star meal, right? So when we celebrate, we make things into a 5-star. Celebrating is a very peculiar action. You're simply adding extra superlative value to it, right? Joy.
Okay. Well, what I'm understanding from it, when we embrace something, so yes, it's a part of acceptance. Yes, okay, yes, I accept it, and now I am adjusting accordingly. But when I'm celebrating something, I don't need to adjust accordingly. It can be on its own that, okay, this is something, yes, I understand, and I want to know more, I want to explore it more because I'm excited about it. I don't need to necessarily adjust with it. I can be completely myself, who I am right now, and still celebrating the difference. But embracing it, actually making it my own, and then adjusting myself with it.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So there, there's nuance difference, but embrace can be nicely understood through a hug. Because an embrace and a hug, same thing, right? That's where the word comes from. Embrace.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But think of when you embrace somebody and it's okay, just a normal hug, like you're saying hello. I don't know if hugs are part of your hello greeting or not.
Yeah. Yes. Limited.
No.
Yes.
Right. But I mean, sometimes you embrace somebody and it's like, okay, perfunctory. However, when somebody comes that you really like and love and enjoy and, or a special occasion, that embrace becomes a celebratory embrace. Very different thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
See what I mean? So to embrace a quality means basically you take a hold of it, you put your arms around it, right? And means you have a grip on it, you have a hold of it, right? But you don't necessarily celebrate it. Yet, when you celebrate it, you kind of have to embrace it also in order to celebrate. But you can't separate the two. Yeah,
Exactly.
you can't
This is what
celebrate
I'm
without embracing.
exactly. This is what I understand. That sometimes people, concepts, ideas, perspectives are not aligned with my state of being right now. Maybe, okay, this is something like, okay, completely alien to me, completely different to me, completely new to me.
Exactly.
But I can still celebrate the difference that, okay, yes, this is
Right,
what you do,
right.
this is exciting. I am not personally, I'm not
Right.
able to do that, or I
Correct.
might be
Correct.
completely, I don't want to do this. But
Right.
still, I can celebrate those things. Embracing and celebrating, for me, the difference is that, okay, I can still celebrate the difference without being completely indulged into that, without completely
Exactly.
immersed into that.
Exactly. And this brings a nuance of celebration. I can celebrate by taking it into myself completely, fully embracing it. And I can, and that's usually if I want to learn something, that's where I was saying, I forgot to say that. When I'm learning something, I have to embrace it. But I can also celebrate without necessarily taking it into myself. And this is the magic of celebrating difference. I'm celebrating externally. I'm appreciating something even though it's not for me. Like, for instance, I don't eat eggs. But boy, I see people and they sit down and they love the eggs and I celebrate that. And it gives me great joy to watch them eating eggs or whatever food I don't eat, right? I mean, I lived with somebody who ate a completely different diet to me a long time ago. And it's like, holy moly, I should celebrate that.
This is okay, only can come with the self-trust. If you have
Exactly.
self-trust, then you actually celebrate differences. You don't get insecure about this. You don't get like really, okay, I'm afraid of this. This is
Right.
super interesting. This is super interesting. So after the break, you are going to actually just give us some examples how we can celebrate right now in this moment, in this era, when we have a lot of conflicts going on, how we can use this celebrating difference in our world, in our life. Okay, so we will continue after the short commercial break. See you guys there.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back to the Moreness Show with Syl and Beena. And before the show, I asked Syl that please elaborate and share with us that how we can actually implement celebrating difference, this idea, this concept from the Moreness culture in nowadays when we are actually having and experiencing a lot of conflicts just because lack of celebrating and acknowledging differences.
We do so through the magic and the power and the magical levels of perspectives. Okay, so take anything, right? Right. Let's start with people. So I go wherever to the fast food place or the whatever, any place, right? And there's somebody there. I'm interacting with them. Now, if I look at them through one perspective only, I see, okay, a clerk, a bureaucrat, a server, whatever, right? Uh, and that's it. I just see an ordinary another person. They could be a doctor, okay, just another person. Right? I don't necessarily see any moreness. But if I shift my perspective and I start looking a little bit deeper, that's the key. When you start to perspective shift, you automatically see more. Because you're looking at it from multiple angles, and there's always more to see. And when you start to see more, wow, there's more here, there's more here. And now, okay, let's assume I don't see any more. How can I then celebrate them?
Oh, wow. Okay.
I can by saying, well, that's different to me. Thank heavens I'm not there.
Okay.
There's always something to celebrate. But I mean, okay, that's like an extreme version, and that's sort of the narcissist version. I'm making a bit of a joke. But still, for me, when I meet anybody, right, there's always some depth to them. You just have to look for it and you see it. Right? There's always something that's like, wow, okay, interesting, surprising, doesn't matter. The fact that they exist for me is enough. I celebrate the fact that, hey, you're doing this and somebody needs to do it and you're doing it. Wonderful. Even if you aren't doing anything, I celebrate the fact that you exist. Because any existence is a magical action. We can't create existence. It's not like you can make up something, but you can't make a human being, right? So they come about, and we don't know how awareness, how life comes about. It's a magical thing. How is it not something to celebrate and be joyful about?
Okay. It's a disclaimer here, because the word celebrating or celebration, it connects with, of course, the joyfulness. It connects with the cheerfulness. It is connected. The typical,
yes,
delight, yes, and happiness. In Moreness culture, what I have observed that so far, that it is not necessarily or not entirely about being always joyful, cheerful, and delightful, and all that. You can still celebrate differences with sobriety, with discernment, with understanding, with awareness.
Exactly.
This is also part of celebration. Celebration not in just typical limited sense. Celebration in moreness sense, when you can. Still again about the embracing, the difference between embracing and celebrating. That you don't need to be part of it. When we embrace something, you can if you want to, but you are not obliged to be part of it. Okay, right now, what I was asking Syl, that okay, right now we have conflicts between two religions, between two nations, between two countries, and states and cities, and of course, in corporations, people have differences, and this is something really making this world kind of a bitter place for many people, for many beings here. Not only people, but of course many beings. It is becoming a bitter place just because lack of celebrating difference. If you are doing something, like I saw a video, a woman sitting on a local metro, and she was eating with hands. Okay, I know that
it was her hands.
With her hands, yes. Okay, this was that action was actually coming not with a very good intent, but still I'm using this example. And other people were, okay, some people were feeling disgusted. Some were like, okay, yes, what is this now? Because of course it was kind of unusual that she was eating there, sitting, everybody sitting there. And of course, it was making other people uncomfortable, because in metros, it's a limited space. You are confined in a place, and the aroma of food and everything makes other people uncomfortable. So it was not appropriate. But still, some people were just saying that, okay, this is what she's doing. That's it. They don't need to do that, do the same action, but they can just let her be whatever she is doing. And this is the kind of a tolerance we can achieve, we can acquire just by understanding the concept of celebrating difference. Yes, you like to eat with your hands, your food you like to eat, and you are eating that. I don't need to do this necessarily. But we can still coexist. We can still actually give due respect to each other. Same applies to religion. Like many religion have different. Hindus are different with Muslims are different with Jews, and Jews are different with Christians, and so on. But it doesn't mean that they are better or worse in any way. We can still coexist with the concept and understanding of celebrating difference. It applies to nations also. Americans are different to Canadians, and Canadians are different to Chinese, and of course so on and on. We all are different, but we all are same. So that's why.
And you asked me, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please. No, please continue.
That's why. That's why what?
That's why we need this idea, this concept of celebrating difference in this world right
it's
now.
It's a much needed shift because we grow up in a superiority paradigm, which is all about hierarchy and comparison. And difference is a negative there. Anything that's not you, it's either higher than you, which is not good, or lower than you, which is worse than you, which is not good. Come on, really. So the only thing you can really enjoy is yourself.
Now I understand when you say that, why aliens are always going to be a negative thing for human. Why everybody assume that they're going to be like really a disastrous thing for.
Right.
They could be very gentle, very deep. Yes.
They don't want them to be better, because if they're better, then that means you're worse by comparison. So they have to be negative to be worse than you. Very foolish logic. But you were talking about, to summarize what you were saying, I have 2 quotes for you, Beena. Basically, that you asked me what is celebration and why do we celebrate? And Nora Aspirant says, I celebrate difference because at root, I'm celebrating that everything is not the same.
Okay. Yes, like that. Yes.
I mean, if everything was the same, if there was and the second quote is, Ursula says, difference brings us the magic of variation.
Exactly.
Variety is the spice of life. And
yes.
Variety comes through, comes through difference.
Difference. Yes.
Variation and variety is the same thing as difference. So when you start to celebrate it, you celebrate variety. Take nature. People love nature, right? Nature is one of the things that almost all people agree on is something to be enjoyed and positive, yes? Now, take any 2 flowers. Are they the same?
No.
No. And trees and things. It's the variety, the variation of nature that makes it so wonderful.
And this is what we try to do when we try to do some art in any form. What we are doing, deliberately collaborating, trying to collaborate differences, different colors, different tones of music, different sounds, different movements. We just collaborate them. This is what art is.
Exactly. Wow. And when you start to celebrate difference, you have the reason for it is, to me, I have an unending source of joy, source of moreness, source of value, source of fun, source of happiness, source of interest. Difference. Why not celebrate? That's the question, Lord.
Exactly.
Why celebrate? Why not? If I'm celebrating and I'm happy, like, it's a positive. I like celebrating. I like being happy. I like being joyful. I like finding value. I like finding moreness. And all you have to do is shift your perspective.
Exactly.
That's all you have to do. All you have to do is just shift out of a habit of thinking in one way only, to shift in another way. That's why celebrating difference, just the concept, when you hear it, it's like a duh. You don't even really need to think about it. It's like, well, okay, yeah, that makes sense if you're honest, right? And you don't have ego and hierarchy and dominance and superiority agendas. It's like, yeah, obviously you're going to celebrate difference. Why not? Because otherwise we'd have everything be the same. And what a world that would be. It'd be horrible. I mean, imagine if you had all the trees exactly the same.
Oh.
And you didn't even have bushes. I mean, no difference, right? That's it. But then again, okay, now trees would be different to streets. If you had to have everything the same, you'd have to basically live in a 2D universe. Right? I mean, you'd have no variety. You might as well be locked away in a light cell with no touch, no sound, like a sensory deprivation tank, something like that. There you have no difference whatsoever. Okay, you got your mind inside, but even then you'd have to switch your mind up completely. In other words, if you had no difference whatsoever, you'd be dead. Because this is how you know you're alive, because you notice difference. Time is noticing change. If you didn't notice change, if you didn't notice difference, no time. And if there's no time, then you must be dead. Same thing.
Wow.
Yes, wow. So celebrate difference. Very big deal.
Yes, it is a big deal. It is a big deal. And when I was trying to understand that, okay, why you choose that word celebration, and I was going deep into, because I do pay attention to every choice of word. Celebrated was like, okay, frequent. It was like, okay, saying that, okay, it's a frequently talked about, famous. So what celebrating is actually making it acceptable to the masses. Like, okay, yes,
Well, also celebrate. Why I say celebrate difference rather than enjoy difference, but celebrate, because celebrate is deliberate.
Exactly.
That's why.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
We'll be back. We'll be back after the break.
Yes. Okay.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Mike Zoric, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zoric, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zoric has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Beena, and before the break, Syl mentioned something really profound. Please, Syl, continue from there.
What did I say? I don't know.
We were talking about the differences, like how to celebrating difference. It is deliberate. It is deliberate. This is the difference.
That's the key. That's what makes why I chose this concept, right? Because as part of Way-Of-Impeccability and part of Moreness-Culture, there's the Dictionary of Power. And Dictionary of Power is a language of conceptuality. Right? Mm-hmm. And when you learn to conceive of things, it changes everything. And you learn to think conceptually. And you learn the ability to conceive, to create conceptions. This is a huge difference. And you think in conceptions, which changes the way you think. Right? For instance, just playing golf. I saw how people struggled because their conception was wrong. Right? And when they didn't even had a conception, they just did whatever. It just came to them. It was inadvertent, just assimilate. And this caused a lot of problems. Right? Like, for instance, they think they have to hit the ball up into the air. No, it works the opposite. Golf is fantastic. It's a game of opposite. But my point is that if you don't think conceptually, you miss out on a lot of value. And when you do start thinking conceptually, you start coming up with things like celebrating difference. Now, Beena said, I could have said enjoy difference, or just enjoy. That would be about the only other option, I guess. Yeah. But to say celebrate rather than enjoy, celebrate adds that element of deliberateness. And this is crucial. When we start to live deliberately, we start to live with power. And whenever you do things deliberately, they have much more joy to them and fun. And typically we can, even if it's a negative thing, if we do it deliberately, we can tolerate it, we can handle it, we can take it. Right? I've used this example many times before. People suffer in jail. But if you're a secret agent going undercover, in order to bust up the criminal gang inside the whatever, you're now going to jail and you don't suffer nearly as much as the other people because you're there deliberately. And same like on Survivor, the TV show Survivor, when they have it's a staple of Survivor to eat the horrible things, the insects or whatever, right?
Yes,
stuff that people would never ever eat, but they do eat it. Okay, they don't enjoy it, but they're able to eat it because they're doing it deliberately. They would not be able to do that if it wasn't deliberate. So deliberation changes. It is an act of power and choice. And when you do things deliberately, like I said, it brings that moreness into play. Brings the moreness into play. Choice, exactly. And when that choice is deliberate choice, right? I mean, when you're deliberately exercising a choice, you may have choice, but deliberation is when you are exercising the choice, right? Choice is on its own, but you still have to do something to make that choice into something, right? And that's exercising the choice. So that's deliberation. It's deliberately exercising. And this is very powerful. So when we now
by making
go ahead.
No, I was just saying that, okay, because it is deliberate, because we are making choice. It's a choice, and when it is a choice, which means that, of course, subconsciously, consciously, we take full responsibility of it. And whenever we take responsibility, it becomes our own.
It's not just choice itself, which is the issue. It's acting on it, and that's where deliberation comes. Right? Deliberation is me choosing to act on my choice, right? And this is what the difference is. So deliberate also by absolute definition means you are actually doing something. I can have choices, but if I don't act on those choices, if I don't exercise those choices, I'm not doing anything, and the choices mean nothing. And this is the point with difference. I am choosing deliberately to exercise my choice to have things be wonderful or not. I can have difference be not wonderful, which a lot of very conservative, narrow people, you can be conservative and not narrow, but you can also be conservative and narrow. In other words, closed people, insecure people, timid people, fearful people, etc. They don't exercise their choices. That's all they know, and it's all they do, and they don't realize they have other choices. They don't have to be fearful all the time. They don't have to worry all the time. They don't have to be insecure. So deliberation can change your entire life. And we start to celebrate difference. Our world is full of difference, for heaven's sake. I mean, it's just, a long time ago, I said to my brother, we were living together, and I said, could you at least try and keep the cupboards neat? And he really appreciated that. He said, that's what I like about you. You're a realist. Now, a lot of people don't know with me and say, oh, you're a positivist. But at root, I'm a realist. But I take realism to the absolute extreme. I'm a very thorough realist, which means if you're real and you're a realist, you have to acknowledge the world is nothing but difference. Right?
Yes.
I mean, is it? I mean, really, where do you really find things that are the same?
Yes.
Even products that come off an assembly line. Like you'll find some variation. It's fantastic, right? So, in other words, even when people are trying to make things the same, it's to come out of it. But the world is essentially filled with difference. This is the magic of the world. Why do people like going to travel? Everybody likes traveling because it's celebrating difference. Isn't traveling celebrating difference? the joys of traveling. So to be a realist means to say, well, the world is filled with difference.
Yes.
I can either fight against the difference, stress against the difference, hassle with the difference, or I can celebrate. Now, a bright spark, Mr. Wisecrack, Wiseacre might say, yeah, but doesn't that mean that you have to celebrate criminals? They're very different. Well, in a way, yes, and in a way, no. Celebrate in the fact that I understand there's a difference, and I celebrate the fact that I'm not a criminal. And I celebrate the fact that I'm not in a criminal environment. And I celebrate the fact that my friends are criminals.
Exactly.
I know criminals exist, at least theoretically, but I don't personally know anybody.
Exactly.
And this is I celebrate. So,
exactly.
Exactly.
Even if you know, you can still be okay. The etymology of celebration was saying that, frequently talked about or making it famous and all these things. What I understand from it is actually like, keen to learn from that. This is about
exactly.
It's different.
So I learn from criminals what not to be. I learn how my psychology could have gone down that path. I learn how I could get corrupted like that. Not just from criminals, but from unhappy, miserable people, worrypots, etc. I have the quick fable of the new nobility, of the fable of the zebra. So this is a story, right? And they have a way to put the consciousness into animals.
We have only 1 minute, so please continue.
Yeah. The first experimenter says, okay, I'm going to go into the zebras. So he's inside a zebra and he can talk to the other zebras. And he's like, oh man, there's the lions. Oh, those horrible lions. And the zebras are all shocked. Oh my goodness. And all the zebras move away from him. You mean the horrible lions? We worship the lions. Well, we worship the lions. They want to eat you. Exactly. The lions make us better. Lions keep us sharp. Lions keep us alert. If you're going to go and be stupid and unaware and indulgent, not pay attention, well, of course the lion's going to eat you. See, the lions help us be better. So the zebras celebrate the lion. They worship the lion, celebrating them. Yes.
Yes, and of course, choosing a positive, beneficial perspective. Yes.
Choice.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And next week, next week, I hope that we will talk about perspective shifting or making choices, capital C choice.
Okay.
We will see what will come as appropriate. Thank you so much, Syl. Thank you so much, Christian. Of course, thank you so much for helping us. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.
Next week, our title is going to be As Appropriate.
This has been The Moreness Show with Syl and Beena. Tune in each week as they focus on bringing joy and peace of being to us all. Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network. Powered by B2 Studios.